Hello and welcome to Warblog. I'm just really recording this because I felt that I had to really. I've just completed this Rift Dimash offensive, tentatively titled June 2016, July offensive, because the June offensive involved the capturing of these little places, and they've already done it, but that's irrelevant really. It's based on, well, a Wikipedia article, but also the South Front website, who based their map on a Pluto sim map. Does quite a lot of these maps, and in there I think it's pretty much called it East Ghouta. So this is sort of East Ghouta, which is Rift Dimash, I think is the region, and I mean basically in 2011 the rebels had a lot more of Syria. One of the most important things to maybe note is that this is Damascus, and I did actually sort of know it, but I did look it up on the internet, and yes, Damascus is the capital of Syria, so it's quite alarming really, I think, to see so many ISIS type people so clear to the capital. I've fortified the capital. There's a lot of fortified places around here as well. I haven't really figured out the balance of the fortifications, etc., etc. But what you have here is what we call the Republican Guard, and they are essentially loyal to Assad and the regime, I think, from what I've read. But basically, they're the only units that are allowed into the city. Now, essentially, in this game, you can't use the Republican Guard. You can use this little unit here. There's some Republican Guard units over here. I think there's another one in there, another one there. You get a few Republican Guards, and these people are spearheading the assault this way. There's these people coming down this way, and to be quite honest, there's forces coming this way, but I haven't really put anything in there, so you have to pray a lot. I don't know. I shouldn't say that, but basically, Damascus is there. I find that strange. I think I've done another map somewhere else of this little region, because some of these names were already in my text box when I wrote them, but I had no idea. I can't remember doing this area. I'm pretty sure I haven't done Ghouta before, but I think it's something near it. Anyway, so the reason I'm doing this video is because this map I think is officially insane. I'm looking at it and it's just a mess. Now I am quite keen on things like this, just because it is so insane. I think essentially, to some extent, the easy way out would be to colour code everyone appropriately. But essentially, once you understand the colour coding, it's actually not that difficult. In fact, it's not actually that difficult at all, because all the black guys are ISIS, as well as the Free Syrian Army there, and the Al-Rahman Legion who are there. So there's only a few off colours. So everyone else is part of the Syrian side. It goes up into there. I've fortified these to give that a little more credibility. So the Syrians are obviously the brown units, but they're also associated, alarmingly enough, with the Palestine Liberation Army, whose entire reason to be is to liberate Palestine and destroy the Israeli state. And Hezbollah are also similarly sort of aligned in it. So they seem like sort of terrorists or bad guys, you know, from the Western perspective. To find, you know, something as blatant as the Palestine Liberation Army in existence was, you know, it's basically a military arm of the PLO, and it doesn't live in Palestine or wherever the PLO live. I'll have to look that one up. But they are generally, Wikipedia states, they're generally hosted in a Middle Eastern country, generally Syria. So these people seem to be a bit transient, but obviously receiving direct support from other Middle Eastern countries, in particular Syria. Wouldn't even be able to hazard against which other countries are hosting them. But presumably there are other places, and so that's an interesting force. And I've given them quite a lot of those units, just basically because they're supposed to be surrounding them. The yellow ones are Hezbollah, who we sort of probably a little more familiar with. They don't like Israel. I was reading today an article about Hezbollah, how Hezbollah have about 200,000 really big missiles. The article is basically saying that Israel are actually probably frightened of going to war with Hezbollah as Hezbollah are being attacked by Israel. I'm not sure how much to sort of read into that, but they're basically talking about targeting all their sort of nuclear facilities and their nitrogen gas tanks and all sorts of strange things. Obviously they've been stocking up on rockets. But anyway, so what we have there is a fairly sort of bizarre alliance of Syrian units. So we've got the Palestinian Liberation Army, Hezbollah, but we also have the National Defence Force, who I don't really know a great deal about. So there's quite a few of those units. I think that's pretty much it. I've put these in here. These are sort of just general random Syrian units, but there's actually quite a lot of them. And obviously I've spoken about the Republican Guard, who are pretty much the elite. You probably wouldn't notice, but I've put the little emblem. The little emblem is a black shield with a skull in it and there's some red writing on the top. And I've just put that little emblem, so when you look at these brown ones, you can see the emblem there. It's maybe a little bit on the counters at this stage. They're not designed to be looked at. I mean, that is so small you cannot see the skull in there. But similarly, that says 102. I don't expect people to actually use the writing on these. They're just there for patterns. For example, you can't read that one. I certainly can't. But it says Hez. Now I know it says Hez, and you can sort of see, I put them there really to sort of, so they're not all blank like that. I think a blank counter looks a bit crap. But something like this, it looks as though it's got a designation, but you're not really supposed to look at the counter for the designation. For example, I can see that says first, but it's not exactly clear. And on the video, you probably would have no chance of reading that. JAS. You can just about read them, but the thing is, if you want to know what it says, you just put your mouse over it. That's the Jaish al-Islam Battalion, infantry battalion. Here we have, as I said, the Palestinian Liberation Army Battalion infantry, etc., etc. But in this instance, I've actually gone a little step further and added a little decorative feature to make them easily identifiable as the Republican Guard. And just as I said, you can't use the Republican Guard, so no sort of marching them out of the city. I mean, these are stonking units. Look at that. I mean, there's over 100 points there, and you can't use it. I was going to give them all 0 movement, just to make sure that you couldn't, but I've left them like that, just in case ISIS do manage to come this way, you can use them. But also, and I'm not really making this official, but you might just want to use them just to see how well you can win when you commit them. But I think the whole idea is that they're not going to be committed because Damascus would be very weak, and it could be something that would actually turn into something a lot nastier than just liberating a few of these places. A little thing to maybe note, we've got the highways in there now. You can't really see it all. Let's go to play mode. Even then you can't see it very well, but that's now highway. So I've got the highways in there. You should be able to use them. The only other thing to just want to sort of talk about is the geography here is fairly interesting. I mean, this is Damascus, and this is all the suburbs of Damascus. Now, it's probably not as dense as all of that, and I think there is probably more suburbs around here. There's probably no real desert anywhere around here. It's all sort of agricultural, very mildly suburban around here. But essentially we've got Damascus over here with its city effect, whether or not it's accurate or and you've got this down here, sort of a diagonal line across. You've got this sort of agricultural basket, and some of these probably shouldn't be desert. It's just I wanted to sort of break it up a little bit to show this sort of gradual movement from agricultural to desert. And this is actually all desert. Now I can maybe put some hills in there or something like that. We actually got some cleared sort of, north of the highway is desert. To the southeast we've got Damascus and its suburbs, and to the southeast we've got the agricultural lands, to the southwest, southeast, etc., etc. Obviously you can see there, but I think the geography alone is quite interesting. These objectives are all relatively random from places within. Just to give you an idea of what you're going for, the green objectives, I don't really expect the river player to actually even capture any of these, but obviously they're objectives, and so they've got to be defended. I think it's going to be an interesting game, and the reason I'm doing this is because I just think you'd have to really start thinking. It's not one of these things where I can see straight away what I want to do, and to some extent I like those games, but in this one I think this one I'm probably not going to make a move, because to start off with, I think, and this is something I sort of like this, but I don't really even have the time to do this myself. You'd have to sit there and think quite concertedly about all the angles. First off, getting into your head where the lines are, and then sort of thinking, well, what are the angles? Now I've tried to do it so that it's not really attractive for the Syrians to attack. I mean, you can't really attack this unit; it's quite weak, but it's also not very appealing. It's not very attractive to attack, the Syrian units. So hopefully this should be sort of fairly balanced across here. But then we have this stack here, which represents this southern advance. Then we have this over here. We should really have something down here, because they came up this way. I obviously neglected that, but no one really knows what's going on. It's all guesswork. There probably aren't half as many units as I've got here. But anyway, so I think essentially the premise here is that there's this massive assault coming in from the east. Remember, they have just taken these towns anyway, and so I don't think that these units are going to stand up to a great deal of combat against these Palestinian Liberation Army and Republican Guard units. I think they're just going to sort of storm straight through here. But I think one of the interesting things that I'm thinking about is what sort of momentum will that give them? Will this momentum soon be slowed down as maybe they roll some bad numbers and get some fatigues? Because fatigues in these units are quite expensive. If you get this fatigued once or twice, that's a lot of. You could go up against that 3-1 and get an exchange. Doesn't matter whether he's got fatigue. This unit getting a fatigue is big news. So I'm just wondering how quickly they could swarm straight across here. Now I have put in quite a few what I call reserve units. And I think, even though I'm looking at it right now, I think I should put more rebel units in there. I don't want to call them ISIS, because I don't think these people are ISIS. I just don't really know who they are. I mean, it's these people, Jaish al-Islam. It's these people, the al-Nusra Front, and that's sort of it, really. The Free Syrian Army. It's just these are just generic air defense units that happen to be called ISIS. But we've got these motorized units that are sort of plonked in the center there to sort of maybe try and come and shore up a defensive line wherever it's going to come from. And there are some sort of fortified places here. So really, I think the emphasis here is to sit down and actually think about what is this unit going to do. Probably nothing, but are they? You've got to look at each little bit, and presumably then use your massive stack here to plough through whatever you can. Anyway, spoken for 15 minutes, not moved a counter. About it, I hope you enjoy it. Cheerio.